What's going on, man? This is Coach Mike D with Black Fathers Now and
James Lopez, the fatherhood is lit. Let's get it.
yeah, and we back with another episode of We Do It for Our Kids. So, brother, man, like, how things going today?
So far, so good, man. I was waiting for this topic that we got today, man. I think it's one that that you and I have probably covered 1,000 times during our regular like conversations.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? But we've never put like a title to it or put it in like a category. And I think it'll be dope for us to kind of do that today, man. You know, try to get some of the dads involved.
And it's so interesting. So a little background as well, just connecting the dots. And it's ironic that it's all happening today. You know, we're a little late recording this because I was on set earlier. So I do acting here locally. And one of the things in this local market here in Knoxville, a lot of the crime drama television shows are filmed here. So if you're like on TV1 and you see Fatal Attraction or ATL Homicide or Sins of the City or For My Man, you know, all those shows, I do a lot of acting in all of those shows. So you'll see me, you know, playing various characters. I've been lead in some, but what's interesting about it, all of these shows are in essence reenactments of various crimes that have taken place throughout history. And one of the things when you start looking at the synopsis and you start reading through your call sheet and the dialogue and all of that, and you start looking at the backstory, one of the things that you come to find, a lot of these crimes in essence happen due to the fact that there are people who have been influenced by various things. Maybe they were influenced by their environment, or they were enticed by, you know, quick money, or they were influenced by a spouse, or influenced by, you know, whatever, right? There's an influence there. And to me, looking at that, thinking about it, but then looking at what we're going to talk about today from the standpoint of things that the streets are not going to teach our kids is so important. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and even so, it's you know, it's things that they're not going to teach. But then there's also things that the streets will teach that we can't be late to it, meaning like we can't be late to that party, right? Like we want to be there early and be able to teach our kids something about it before the streets do. And you know, there's definitely 100 or thousands of things that the streets are going to teach our kids before we do. It's just trying to minimize that with some of like the bigger topics.
But you know, it's interesting though, man. Like as you say that, I was thinking, because when I think about things that the streets are not going to teach my kids, or things that I don't want the culture to teach my kids, the streets or the culture has a purpose though. And for me, it's not as the teacher, but as the testing model. So I think in the perfect scenario, how this thing plays out is you and I teach our kids about various topics and subjects and things they're going to encounter. But then once they get into the real world, once they get into the culture, once they get, you know, in the streets, air quotes here, that's when they can put what we taught them into practice. So I don't want the streets to teach them, but I do think that the streets and the culture will be an avenue for them to put what we taught them to test.
Yeah. And I think because of the way that the streets, and when I say the streets, I mean just any street, right? You could be in the wealthiest neighborhood ever, right?
Absolutely.
The streets, they move quick. You know what I mean? So while we're sitting at home thinking about, yo, how do I teach my kid financial responsibility or even the sex talk? While we're thinking about that, they're already teaching them, and they're teaching them in ways that we just don't see or think about. You know what I mean? Like if my son walks past a store like a Louis Vuitton store or YSL, one of those high-end stores, they got the models looking really nice with all the clothing. That's already giving them some exposure that I need to start talking about. You know what I mean? Where it's like, if I don't talk to him, you know, to him, it's like he's looking at the mannequins or the models or the pictures of models. And he's like, all right, that's pretty cool. But there's something in there. There's something in his head working, saying, all right, she's cute. She's not cute. Oh, she got a body. She doesn't have a body. So something's being taught there or being thrown at him. And it's like, yo, I want to be there to talk about those things before they just come at them full fledged. Right? Before the streets really get them. And like, think about like when we were talking about it a while ago, you know, this came up because we were talking about like the sex talk, right? Do you want to catch your child in the act, or do you want to be before, right? The streets doesn't care where it catches them, right? The streets are going to push your kids to go do things, right? So where do you want to stand there? Like, do you want to be before or after? And to me, I don't want to be late to those things, man. I don't want the streets to teach my son everything about sex, man.
So look, and I think you did the proper lead in to the first one, and that's sex and relationships, right? And I think that's spot on. And I'm in the same boat with you, man. I do not want the streets. I don't want the culture. I don't want the music. I don't want television or what YouTube videos. I don't want anything. I don't want any of those things. I don't even honestly want, other family members and friends, even though they may be well-meaning. I don't want the streets, i.e. anybody outside of my wife and I, being the one initially teaching our kids about sex and relationships, right?
Yeah, and that's coming to them. That's coming to them, right?
It's like already,
you and I talking about it, and they're already seeing YouTube videos that involve it.
And they have questions. And see, what's interesting about it is, because of, these things, our phones and, internet access and all of that, and even all the little stuff, the games and things that they play, the thing that's challenging is we're now having to approach these conversations a lot earlier in life, right? So I'll give a prime example. Speaking of sex and relationships, my daughter, my oldest, she's in the 5th grade, 10 years old, and she came to us a couple of months ago, and she said one of her classmates said that they were gay, right? And we were just like, what do you know about that? And so then she came to us, and she was just like, well, that just means they like girls instead of liking boys or whatever. And I'm just like, woo. But then that opened up this window for my wife and I to really have to engage and talk about that, because she in the 5th grade has a classmate who is on the playground going around telling people that she's gay, and so it's interesting, but it's one of those things where we have to address these things early on.
But wait a minute, you're absolutely correct. You got to address it, because I had the same thing, like when my son in middle school, where we didn't think he knew certain things, and then he started talking, and it was like, oh shit, like damn, we're late to this, right? But that didn't mean that immediately the pressure was on you to go home and teach them about that. So how did you approach taking the time to actually say, hey, you know what, this is a conversation that we need to have, right? Now let me set up some time to do so. Did you just jump down her throat and say, hey, this, that, and about sex, or did you actually wait till you got home? Like, how did that play out?
Yeah, so she actually, this was when we were home and we were just doing our debrief, because a lot of times what happens when we come home, we get there, I pick the kids up, we come home, we talk a little in the car, my wife gets home, she talks a little bit, and then we were sitting there in the kitchen and she just mentioned it, right? And it was kind of like in passing, like it really wasn't a big deal, but my wife and I caught, and we like looked at each other and we were like, okay, come back here for a minute. So what does that mean? Like, what do you know about that? And then she explained to us, and she said that just means that she likes girls, she doesn't like boys. And so we were like, okay, she kind of gets an understanding of that. And then it was more of the question of, well, what do you feel about that? And for her, she was like, because she's not quite she's in the boys or whatever phase yet. Yeah. So it really didn't register. And I think this is so important as well. We need to teach our kids before the streets or the culture teaches our kids, but we also have to be mindful of their actual age and their level of understanding. So for us, it was just really more so about making sure that she understands what that means, so that she's not blindsided by somebody else making a comment. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And but it wasn't about us going into, well, this is what's up and that's what's up, and going into so many different layers of it. It was making sure that she understood what that meant. Also letting her know that, what mommy and daddy have, that's, what we model in our household. And, but we understand that there are people who have different beliefs and different perspectives and approach life, through different lenses. That doesn't mean that you hate or disown or look at anybody any differently, but just understand what mommy and daddy are modeling at home is what we're showing from the standpoint of, how we believe and how we live our life. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it does. It makes perfect sense. And I think it goes back to what you were saying, which was like, I think you were trying to say that, like, it's the exposure, right?
Yes.
So like with the streets, like the exposure comes at different levels, right? Where kids have way more exposure to certain things than others, but also sometimes they have exposure to things that they don't really know they're being exposed to. So they don't know how to teach that. So
Mm-hmm.
the case of like what you were just mentioning with your daughter, you know, in my hood where I'm from, there might be a kid that might tell your daughter, nah, that ain't right. But then
Mm-hmm.
there's another kid that's been exposed to that that'll say, nah, you know what? It doesn't matter if it's right or wrong in your eyes. What it is you still got to respect them.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
But it's all due to exposure. Right?
Mm.
And I think that's the part where, first of all, dad's got to take a step back and say, all right, my kid definitely knows more than I think they know. My
Mm-hmm.
kid might be a saint. They might be straight A kids. They might be the perfect child in my eyes,
Mm-hmm.
but they definitely know more than I do because they've been exposed to things when I wasn't around.
Ooh.
And what those things are, we never know.
Dude, you said something there, and it's interesting because sometimes you're exposed to something and you don't know that you've been exposed to it, right?
Yeah.
Because they've not put two and two together to realize that, oh, that's what that was. And it's funny, we're talking about sex and relationships. Everybody that I know that is married, that has kids that can walk, a kid then kicked the door and walked in on them at some point.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Getting
Yeah.
down, right? And it's funny. It's funny because when they're super young, you know, they don't really know what's going on. Mommy and daddy are wrestling. You know what I'm saying? They probably want to jump up in the bed and try to join the party because they think
you brushed them off too. Like, yo, get out of here.
Yeah, get out of here. But, you know, but to your point, when, you know, ours are 8 and 10. So they're kind of at that age in which, you know, when the door is locked, okay, we'll wait and ask our questions a little later.
Yeah.
You know? So it's like, you know, so it's like, I guess the oldest, I don't know if the youngest one quite understands what's going on there, but the 10-year-old is starting to put two and two together. And it's just like, okay, I'll wait. And then when the door opens, I'll come and make my request.
Yeah. Now they know a lot of them, but it's funny because they want to jump in, like you said, when they're younger, they jumping in. But the older one is like, for me, I have a 15-year-old, man. I don't want him catching me doing anything, man.
Yeah, that's it. But see, and that's such
exposure.
That's a funny thing because your 15-year-old is at a point in which he knows exactly what's going down. Right. Yeah. And so to that point, it's different between him and like your 7-year-old or your 5-year-old, whatever. It's totally different there because there it can kind of be like, okay, they maybe kind of get, but they don't get it. You know what I'm saying?
No, it's true, man. But going back to what you were talking about with your daughter, you know, I think that's one thing that I didn't even think about before we had our conversation. And I think the streets won't teach your kids empathy, where it's like that comes from us. Right. Where I think that's not something that that people don't pick up on too often. Like I know in school they're not teaching that. You know what I mean? And definitely on the streets, I don't think they're teaching that either. Because where I'm from, it's you got to go get it. You know, they don't, you know, it's F your feelings. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a very valid point, dude. And like one of the things that when you mentioned they don't teach you empathy, and that's our job. And then it comes back to this whole notion of when it comes to these topics that, you know, again, we don't want the streets actually teaching our kids this thing. But the reality is, and you made a very, very valid point, there's some things they've already been exposed to. They just not been able to kind of put two and two together and identify what it is. Sometimes it's not going to be that we lead the way, but once we identify that there's been exposure there, we have to find our way into the conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And put it into terms that make sense to your kids, but also make sense to yourself. Right. Where sometimes some of these conversations aren't easy. Right. So why try to play yourself and make it harder? Like instead try to turn it into something that makes sense to you. You know?
So I guess
that's difficult.
Yeah. So let's get specific on this one. So when it comes to like sex and relationships, you know, what are the things that you want to teach your kids? And you don't want the streets to teach them about that?
Oh man, I think the biggest one for me, you know, a lot of parents are going to automatically default to how to stay protected, right? And that's a given. To me, I think as a boy growing up in New York City, the biggest thing that I want to teach them that the streets won't teach them is that you don't got to take one for a friend. Like, you just don't have to. You know, I know it sounds a little funny sometimes. It might sound cliche, but just because your friends are getting some and they tell you, yo, you got to take one for the team. You don't got to take one for the team, man. Taking one for the team could cost you 18 years of child support payments. You know what I mean? It could bring you some agony. You know what I mean? So I think that's the main thing, like teaching them how to respect himself, how to respect his decisions. You know what I mean?
And you have all boys.
Yes. And once again, we're in New York City where in any city, any town, I'm sure the pressure is going to be the same, where the
That's
friends
right.
are telling them, yo, get down. And that's for boys and girls. I'm pretty sure that there's girls out there telling other little girls, yo, you still a virgin? Like, what's wrong with you? Just get with him. And it's like, nah, I don't need to get with him just to be down with you. Like, that's kind of funny. You know what I mean?
Can I tell you, and your story was literally part of my coming of age, right? No pun intended, coming of age. But
no, we keeping dad jokes out of here, bro.
Keeping dad jokes out of here.
We ain't doing that, Mike. Only on Fridays, man.
but it's funny though, because dude, I'm gonna be honest. Like, I know when I got to high school and you're playing high school football, you know, being in the locker room, the quintessential locker room talk, you know, it's like everybody talking about, oh, this girl and that girl and what you're doing. And I'm gonna be honest, man. It's like, yeah, you like girls, but I really wasn't ready to start going in that direction yet. But the thing is, on a personal level, I wanted to be a part of the conversation. Right. Yeah. And so sometimes the peer pressure is going to come not from the standpoint of them telling you, hey, man, you better do that. Oh, you ain't hit that yet. It's not that. Sometimes it's just the fact that you want to belong. Like, everybody's going around telling a story and they get to you and it's like, ain't nothing to tell. It's like, uh-oh. You know what I'm saying? And so either you lie about it, you know what I'm saying? Or you change the subject, or you hurry up and, you know, step away before they get to you to kind of give your little snippet. So I think the biggest thing, and I think that's basically adds into what you were saying, because again, that was me. I can remember that. But the biggest thing that I'm going to teach my kids about sex and relationships is that we have to not minimize the emotional connection that happens when you physically start interacting with people, right? Like, I mean, I've spoken, you know, I'm a speaker and stuff. I speak to different groups, and I remember speaking to a group of young men, and they actually wanted me to come in and talk about, you know, making the right decisions regarding sex and dating. And I told every dude in there, I said, dude, to be completely transparent with you, I wish my wife was my first. Like, I told him, I say, dude, I wish.
That's different. That's different.
Yeah, that is. Yeah. And I tell him, because I'm like, dude, I wish my wife was my first, because when I look back to all the, you know, growing up era and teenage years and college and all of that stuff, one of the things that I look back on is just like all the physical interactions that happened didn't mean anything. I look back on it, the only thing it brought you was concern and worry, you know, or, you know, or heartache or challenges, and it complicated matters. And I'm just like, then on the flip side, I didn't share something special with the most special person in my life. And so I think that's a conversation we need to have with guys. And again, I'm not trying to tell you, you gotta, you know, do this and do that virgin, or whatever. Man.
Yeah, I'm not stay a virgin until marriage.
I mean, that's probably the best scenario. But I look back and I'm just like, dude, I wish my wife was my first. And I heard something a long time ago, and it said that the challenge with a lot of guys growing up, you know, sticking and moving, is that we become desensitized to intimacy. And then the problem is, when we do meet the one that we're supposed to be with, we don't know how to just be there, because we like, dog, I'm trying to stick and move and get the hell on, because I'm not wired to spend time, to hang out, to just watch a movie without it having to go, you know, escalate to the next level. And so for me, I have a little girl and a little boy. I want to really teach them about, yes, you got to teach them about the risk and this and that and all of that. But the reality is, I also want to teach them about the emotional connection and how special this thing is. And yeah, I want to teach them about the emotional connection and how special this thing is, and how that complicates matters. And it also sets you up where it makes it a little challenging when you do meet that person that you're supposed to spend the rest of your life with. You're now having to unlearn things to then put yourself in a position to be that best spouse, that best husband, or that best wife.
Yeah, no, that one's tough. That one's tough for a lot of dudes and women, right? Like for me, for my son, I would love to teach him that as well. Like, hey, you know, like have that one-to-one bond, right? But on the flip side, I would also tell him, you know, to find that one-to-one bond, you might have, you know, 1 to 5 or 6 of them that you don't like. You know what I mean? Like that's just the way
we're not talking numbers. We're not.
I'm just gonna throw random numbers. You know what I mean? But more like, you know, that's the experience. So there are some people that's gonna get lucky and find somebody that is their soulmate. You know what I mean? But then for the majority of us, no, we might have to bump into 1 or 2 nags, or 2 you know, 2 dudes that suck. You know what I mean? Like we're gonna have to bump into some people that don't fit our life term goals. So I would take your lesson and flip it into saying, hey, if you be mindful that this could happen. But if it don't happen, it's not the end of the world. But be happy that when you do find that one, y'all gonna have something special. You know what I mean? Because you and wifey, you might not be, your wifey might not be your first, but she's the rest of your life, right? So every day is kind of special together.
Absolutely. I like that.
So it's like, maybe you bump into the wrong one every now and then, but now you find yourself one that you should hold down. And don't let your friends tell you that you shouldn't hold them down. You know what I mean? Like
that's real.
It's a big thing. Like, to me, I think sex is one of those things that kids are pressured into learning about it because of friends, because of society. Us, the parents, we're trying to hold that conversation as long as possible, right? Like, we're trying to hold back from having it, but we can't. The kids are getting it way sooner, like you said. They're getting it from school. They're getting it from YouTube. Like, like YouTube, man, or even TV. You throw on the shows and it's nothing but sex, right? Like, if you throw on Power, it's nothing but soft porn. You know what I mean? So the kids are knowing something. You better talk to them, man.
Well, and I think the other part to it is, I think we have to do a job. And I think this is where the home front and reinforcement of the home front is so important. We have to make it special again, because it's gotten so casual that's just par for the course. It's like, we're supposed to run through. Like, it's interesting. And it's a gender thing. I'm gonna be honest with you, because growing up, boys, we're taught, hey, go conquer as much booty as possible. And then when you get in your late 20s, early 30s, you settle down. But get it out your system. Just play. And but then girls, nobody tells girls that. Nobody tells a little girl, hey girl, go and play around and have you a few boyfriends and have you some times and whatever. And then when you get in your 20s or 30s, then it's time for you to settle down. Nobody says that, right? And so, but again, that's a cultural norm that the sow your royal oats, right? And again, and I'm gonna be full transparency. I'm not going to say that I was not kind of inspired to do that by, some folks who are, kind of influential, right? It's, hey, have some fun, don't settle down, but I think that could also be detrimental on the back end. And we have to rethink that, because when we learn better and know better, we got to do better.
Yo, so let's play a game, man. Let's play a game.
Let's get it.
You got a son and a daughter, right?
Yes,
so let's do this. Let's do this. Your son comes to you and he tells you, Dad, I went to hang out with a girl after school, right? She wanted to do Netflix and chill. This is gonna happen for both of them. I didn't know what it was. Now I left the house and I didn't get none. Same thing with your daughter. Your daughter might, let's flip it. Your daughter might say, hey, Dad, we were doing Netflix and chill, and the things I expected to happen didn't happen. I don't like this dude no more. How do you play both sides? Like, how do you tell your son, hey, you know what? I'm glad you didn't do it. And then how do you tell your daughter, well, that's not the important side?
That's interesting. That's an interesting perspective, because, I don't, it's a hard one, right? Because I have to make sure that I come back and understand that they are their own people and they're going to make their own decisions.
No, we're screaming at them. Well, the daughter we're screaming at first, because she might have expected the wrong things, and then your son, we're screaming at him anyway for feeling bad. You know what I mean? For feeling bad that he didn't want to do something that people were kind of like telling him this is the norm.
Well, you know what though, dude? I think that's a why question, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm just gonna really ask, well, why did you feel that way? You know what I'm saying? And really get into him.
That's good. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. I just think that's, because I don't think there's, because my thing is, I'm never going to begrudge my kids for doing the right thing. Right. Yeah. Maybe if they didn't intend to do the right thing, that's still, but even still, I'm never going to begrudge them for doing the right thing, even if they didn't intend to do the right thing to begin with. Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm always going to celebrate the right decisions, and I'm not going to reward bad decisions. So I'm not going to pat them on the back for doing something wrong. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not going, I don't know, man. That's a hard one. I think I just think it's more the why. What about you? How would you handle that?
Now that I heard your answer, of course, I'm going to say the why, because the why makes me feel like, we as parents, we've been through so much that we sometimes jump the gun, right? And we'll look at our kids and say, why didn't you do it my way? And it's like, your way doesn't really represents them though. You know what I mean? So it's almost like I would have to take a step back and ask them, why did you say no? right? Because I'm gonna be proud, right? But I want to hear him say, Dad, I didn't want to do this because I know that's what people wanted, and I wasn't feeling her. He tells me that, I'm gonna hug him. You know what I mean? But I'm still gonna give him the kick in the butt and be like, "What, Jaden? Like you had that lined up and you didn't take advantage." It's a hard mix. You know what I mean? It's a hard mix. Like, damn, dude. Like, I love that you're being yourself and being able to say no. But now there's gonna come there might be some repercussions with that. Like, she might go back to school and tell all her friends, who in turn might tell their friends. I'm still gonna be here for you, man. Like, I'm still gonna be here for you after that happens. Because I still go back to, the kids are evil. but
hold on. So going back to it is you're gonna get at your son and be like, dude, you should have hit that, man.
I'm gonna get at him as a joke because the thing is with my relationship with my son, I can't. It's hard for me to just come straight forward, right? So it's almost like I want to give him the different sides of what somebody's gonna tell him. Right. So it's going to start off with, what? You didn't do it? Oh, man, you were scared. And then it's going to be the hug of, you know what, man, I'm proud of you. You know what I mean? So I'm going to put more emphasis on, I'm proud of you. But the conversation has to start with the joke because the relationship that we have.
Okay, gotcha. So that's contextual. Okay. You're contextualizing it. This is not like just some random case study. This is how I communicate with my son. Okay.
Yeah. Because I give him, I'm the dad that believes in a lot of tough love, right? But I've learned through my dad that sometimes tough love doesn't look like love. It looks like no love. Right. So it's like I gotta give him the tough love of what his friends would give him, or another male might give him, which is what? Like, how why did you say no? Like, show me a picture. You know what I mean? But then I've still got to give him the real love, which is, yo, man, this is what I raised you for. Like, I raised you to stand on your own 2 feet and be able to say, nah, man, you might roll like this, but I'm not. And I don't care what comes with it.
You said something there, and this is interesting. I wonder, because you have all boys.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the concept of tough love versus real love. My whole thing is, if he were a girl instead of a little boy, I don't think you would even start with the tough love. You would go straight to the real love.
Yeah, I'll go straight to the real love, man.
But hold on. So pause.
Yeah. So there is some biasness there.
That's right. So why do we feel like we have, because the world's gonna be tough. The society, culture, friends, everybody's gonna be tough. And at times, and it's funny you say that because I have an 8-year-old son, and so I think about it too. It's just like the world's gonna be tough. So why do we feel the need to give tough love? Because they're going to get tough regardless. From us, they just need the real love. And so you just realize, you just saying that made me think like, dang, how would I respond? And would I start off with the tough love and then go there? Or would I say, you know what, I'm going to give him the same benefit I give my daughter. I'm going straight to the real love.
Yeah, I think for me, I would have to do that to break the ice. Because I feel like with and this might be off base, right? But I feel like with males, when it comes to father-son relationships, it seems like boys are quick to shut down, right? So it's almost like if I come to him with straight love, he might just like walk away. Whereas when I joke with him, it's like, all right, now I'm breaking down the wall a little bit. Where it's like, yeah, Jaden, like you thought I was gonna come to you with straight love, but let me joke with you real quick and then flip it.
You know what? I think that's discomfort from the dad end, right?
Yeah.
I think there's
it is because I feel like I don't want to be that. Like, I want him to see that yes, I am that dad. I'm gonna be on top of you, but on the same token, you could talk to me. So yes, we might joke around a little bit, but it's still gonna be serious. But it's still gonna be at least a little joke-ful, right? Where you could feel comfortable speaking to me, like come to me first. So I do that just because the relationship we have. My middle child, I don't know. He might be a little bit different where I could come to him straightforward, right? But it also depends on the topic as well. If I had a daughter, I don't know, man. I think if my daughter came to me and told me, hey, Dad, I was with this boy, Netflix and chill, man, he wouldn't even touch me. I don't know. I think I would go crazy, man. I'll be like, I'm thankful that he didn't touch you, but what the hell was on your mind? You know what I mean? What was it that I didn't teach you? But there is a little bit of biasness, but luckily I'm not the one with daughters, man. You are.
My man. Yeah, I got one.
I'm sticking to my boys, bro. I'm sticking to my boys.
Dude,
Easy.
It's not, but it's just so interesting, just the whole premise of, as dads, we feel the need to be tough, but then the reality is, if we create an environment in which our kids are open and willing to talk. And I think that starts with, it's, I think I gave the story, I don't know if it was with our talk here or in just private conversation, how back in the day when I was in high school, my mom basically told me, she said, look, if you ever need a ride, because I was getting to the age I was riding with people or driving or whatever. She said, if you ever need a ride and you call me, I'll pick you up no matter what time of day it is, and I won't ask you any questions. And there was one time in high school that I had to call my mom to come pick me up. She picked me up, didn't ask any questions. And the thing is, I know it took everything inside of her not to ask me what was going on and what was happening and all of that. Yeah, what she wanted to. But the reality is she didn't. And that gave me so much trust in my mother because she held her word there. And so I think if we as dads do scenarios in which we prove to them that, look, if I tell you I'm not going to get mad at you about this situation, if you come to me first, cool. Look, don't get mad. Because the moment that you get mad after you told them you wouldn't, you break that trust. And then it goes to that notion of, like you mentioned before, they won't come to you with anything. And you just got to find out through somebody that, oh, this happened, or I heard this happened with your son or your daughter.
Yep. It's crazy because we're talking about this, and I hope the listeners understand that there's still a topic in there, right? Yep. And that topic of the streets, being able to like teach your kid things. One thing right there that we're talking about, that we consistently talk about, is love, right? Where I don't want my kids to learn what love is through the streets. I want them to learn that love is, with us, with the family. You know what I mean? And it's because of that. Because if they believe that the only love that they need is the streets love, right? Then on the sex talk, it negates everything that we said, because it doesn't matter. They're not going to think about us when they're doing it. Not that they're thinking about us anyway. But before they do it, they're not going to think about impressing us by saying or yes. They're going to think about what their friends are thinking. So it's love lives here, bro. Love lives in our household. You know what I mean? The streets don't love you more than we love you, bro. Ever. You know what I mean? And I think that's a big lesson. And it comes with everything that we talked about. The sex talk, money talk, all of that. Breaking down the walls. That's real love.
Dude, you just leading with love. And the thing too, though, is the one thing that we do not want the streets to teach our kids about is love. And it's like, if you look at, the studies with, kids who get involved in gangs or in organized crime or whatever, if you really look at it, it really starts with them feeling like this big homie is showing them love. They're putting money in his pocket. They're making sure he got something to eat. They're making sure he gets protected. Like, it was a kid that I was connecting with years ago in LA, and, he had joined a gang and all of that. And at a park that we were sitting at, the kids around him was saying, talking about him being in this gang or whatever. And I came to find out later that this kid lived in a neighborhood in which he was getting beat up all the time. And so he just joined a gang because he needed protection so he could walk to the bus stop without getting his head beat in, right? Because of the neighborhood he lived in. And it was just interesting. They showed him love, and he saw love from the streets. So therefore he gravitated to the streets with regard to his affiliations and connections and all of that. And so I think that's the second one. It's just like the things that the streets aren't going to teach my kids. I'm going to try my best to make sure that the streets don't teach them love, because they have so much love at home.
Yeah, man. And they don't need to search it outside, and that's once again, that's not everybody's normal, right? Like there are some instances where a child doesn't have a parent, they're being raised by their mother, they're being raised by their fathers, but they're not parents, right? They're just custodial. You know what I mean? And they do gravitate to the street, and it's unfortunate. So even the kids that do fall into that spot, you hope that somebody like us or somebody in our world runs into them where they could show them what love is without having to be home with them every day. You know what I mean? What's real love? But like you said, man, like some instances, the streets is all the love that they get, man. Like I would prefer that the child has the streets than nothing. But I gotta come first. You know what I'm saying? Like I gotta come first. And that's just real talk, because it's like a child that's gonna get beat up on the block every day, walking to school, walking to work or whatever. If he doesn't have parents, then he got nobody, man. So I prefer for him to have the streets. it's gonna cause them some heartaches later. It might take their life, right? But I would prefer that over the alternative of not having anybody, because we all need some type of love, man. And it just sucks that some people got to get it that way. You know?
So fellas, I mean, those that are listening and tuning into this, again, you know, the first thing that James and I both agreed on, that the streets are not going to teach our kids about sex and relationships. But then the big one is the streets are not going to teach our kids about love. We want to make sure that they get all the love in-house. And again, we have different family dynamics. We understand circumstances and situations. But the reality is, if we have anything to do with it, the streets aren't going to teach our kids about love. And the next one I want to ask you about, man, is drugs and alcohol. Like, for me, that's one of the things I do not want the streets, air quote, to teach my kids about drugs and alcohol. And I'll jump in first real quick, just specifically on the alcohol. You know, if you pay attention, like advertisements and movies and everything, one of the things I was paying attention to, if you look at any movie or any television show, if there is a breakup, or if there's a relationship issue, or if somebody just lost a job, what is the typical next scene in that movie or that television show?
Yeah, they got themselves a drink, man, a bar.
They got a drink. That's it. Somebody has a hard day at work. What's the next scene?
Yeah, a drink. Drinks. Or even if they had a good day.
If they had a good day, celebrate with a drink. Like, everything comes back to, and this is society. People don't understand product placement and, you know, all these different things and the brands in the back and all of that, because the companies who produce the spirits or the substances want you to do that, because then that means that, okay, people are starting to trigger that I have a bad day, I have a breakup, I have an issue, I lose some money, I need to go drink my sorrows away, right? And I had a buddy in college, man, and it's such a crazy scenario, because every time something went wrong, he got a speeding ticket, or he got a parking ticket, or he got a bad grade on something, he'd be come pick me up. He's like, man, let's go to the package store. Let's go to the package store. I mean, everything that was wrong, it was like he had to go. He's ready to go drink his sorrows away. And it triggered in me. And I was just like, dude, I don't ever want to drink to solve my issues. Right. And so, yes, my wife and I might have a glass of wine. We might have a cocktail, and our kids might see us order a glass of wine or beer or something at a restaurant, but they're also seeing how we consume alcohol responsibly. And you never hear in our mouth or out of our mouth come, I need a drink, because we don't need it. We just might want a glass of wine to go with dinner. Right. And so I want our kids to not be influenced by society that you have to have alcohol. Now, if you choose to, and you're of age and you're responsible and all of that, you know, okay, that's a different conversation. But I don't want the streets to teach my kid that when shit goes left, you need to go find a bottle.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. Because I think coming from a Spanish household or a Puerto Rican household, you know, years 1 through like 6, those birthday parties weren't for me. My name was on the cake. The I was on the cake. All of that was there. But what it was really for was for all the grown-ups to just turn up.
That's it.
My first birthday, there was Coronas everywhere, Heineken's everywhere. So, you know, it's one of those things where I don't want the streets to teach my kids, but I also don't know how we introduce it to them. Because like for me, I was introduced at a young age, you know, seeing my family party. But then my dad used to tell me all the time, you know, I buy all these beers for the family. I don't drink. I don't like the taste. And all I wanted to be was my dad. So I've always liked my Hennessy. Like, I love Hennessy. I love some cognac. I love a good vodka, stuff like that. But I barely ever drink. You know what I mean? So I don't even know how I would even. I'm sure my son has seen us, but not a lot, right? Not often. So I don't even know how to approach that. You know what I mean? To me, it's like with the drinking. Once again, I was introduced early. Like, being able to see my parents drink early. That leads to your parents telling you at 10 years old, "Hey, you want to take a sip?" You know, now you taking a sip and saying, "Oh, this is nasty," and how it continues. I don't drink enough to teach my son yet, man. Like, I don't drink. But my thing is, don't drink because of where it leaves you. Right?
That's right.
Where it's like in my family, people used to get drunk at these parties, and then there will be a rumble, and it's like, yo, I thought we were here to party. Instead, we're rumbling. You know what I mean?
It's real.
So it's almost like I want to teach them that you could drink responsibly. But I really don't know how. Like, maybe that starts at 18. I don't know. Maybe you could give me some advice.
But the thing is, I don't think it's about teaching them how to consume, right?
Yeah.
I think it's more so about setting the model for. I remember growing up, if my mom or my dad had a drink, they might have a glass of wine with dinner,
Yeah.
right? That's not a big deal. So it's not like a big deal, but it's also one of those things where I don't always remember, when my mom is upset or my dad is upset, they automatically went and got a beer. Or my mom or my dad's upset, they went ahead and poured a thing. Or if they were frustrated, they went and poured them a glass of wine. Or if they were stressed, they went because the thing is, the model that we're setting is alcohol is not going to be or is not a solution to problems, right? Yeah. Because again, television and media, pay attention. Everybody watching this, watch the next movie. Pay attention to when the alcohol scene or the bar scene comes. It's always after some type of issue. She broke up, she got a bottle of wine, a gallon of ice cream, and she's crying on the sofa and her friends are there, or he just had an issue. Him and his homeboys are sitting at the bar, or he's had a stressful day. Oh, I need a drink. Or you watch some of all the different shows that are on whatever now, they stressed out. They just pouring liquor. First thing they do when they walk in the room, pour liquor. And I think we have to be mindful that is not norm, nor should that be the norm, nor is that the standard for you. Now, again, if you choose to consume, we do so responsibly, but you don't need it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I think
that's me.
I mean, for me, I think I learned, I think it was all like you just said, it was the exposure, right? Where, I saw my dad do these parties for us, but he wouldn't drink. So and then coming from where I came from, I seen, 1 o'clock in the morning where one crew is drowning in liquor and they're wasted and they're acting up. And now the other crew is kind of sober. And we're all looking at them saying, yo, what the hell is wrong with them?
Yeah, real.
So it's one of those things where it was like, all right, I don't want to be like that. You know what I mean? But I also had family trauma where it was like alcoholics in the family where it's like, oh man, I also don't want to be like them either. So I don't want to have to turn up. The only way for me to turn up is with liquor. And I also don't want to turn into the family members that when they get drunk, it's the drunk uncle you never want around the house. You know what I mean? So I think with me, it was like trauma caused me not to like alcohol or not to drink alcohol like that, or to know that there's a level that I could mess with or vibe with, and then know that there's a level that I just can't because I don't know what's gonna happen next. Teaching my son that it comes just through regular life, right? Like if we're in Puerto Rico and I buy myself a pina colada or something on the beach, he'll tell me, give me a sip. And it's like, no, you can't have none. This has adult liquor in it or whatever. So he knows, but also this is one of those moments where I won't lie, school beat me to it, man. Like school already taught him about alcohol. Like he knows that a cup of beer is about a can of beer is the same as a cup of wine. You know what I mean? When it comes to alcohol level. And it's like, yo, how do you come back from that? Like that education is pretty not decent, but it's good, like it's okay. So I think it's more about me telling them all the time, like, yeah, dad had a drink, but look, I don't drink when I drive. I don't drink when I'm doing work. I don't drink when I'm with you guys.
There you go.
You know what I mean? Like this is, I took a drink for happy purposes. The only negative time that I might take a drink is, doesn't happen no more. And that's when you lose a friend. You know what I mean? That hasn't happened in a very long time due to us getting older and wiser, right? So, we don't pour out that many drinks anymore. You know what I mean? So I just think it comes with exposure. That's a tough one, man. You got me with that one.
It is. But the thing is though, and I think you hit the nail on the head when it's, we're not encouraging our kids to consume, right? But if they're of age and they choose to, we want them to have the model and the understanding of what that looks like. And it's not that you have to, go off to college and, get kicked out because you just drinking too much and, stumbling home and all of that, which again, I've had my moments, right? In which I've had to bump my head on the wall to learn, what's right and what's wrong. But hopefully we can be on the front end of actually teaching them what's right and what's wrong, not to encourage them to do it. Because again, the best case scenario is just leave it all alone, right?
Yeah.
Should you want to, there are rules to the game, right? And let's take that. Let's go ahead and let's go ahead and hit it too. Then
wait, before you do that, I just want to say that I will not that I'll be embarrassed, right? And not that I will be surprised, but it would bring a different feeling to me if my sons or any of my kids go off to college and year 2 or 3 of college, they come back to me and tell me, yo, I'm the president of this frat and I go visit him, and all his friends are telling me, "Yo, we got a drinking game under their name. Like,
Mm-hmm.
like
Wow.
we named a drinking game after them."
Mm-hmm.
I would be kind of embarrassed because I'm late to the party again. Where it's like,
Mm.
I didn't know you would that type of drinker, and bro, you're not even 21 yet.
Mm-hmm.
You
Wow.
know what I mean? So I don't know. So this is something that now actively I'm gonna actually start watching. Where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
all right, when I do have a drink, or when we do go to a party where there's liquor being served, we're gonna have a conversation. What that conversation is gonna look like, I have no idea, man. Where that
That's
conversation will take us, I have no idea. But we're gonna have it. You
That's
know?
super important, dude. I'm glad you said that, because that's super important. Because the biggest thing is the streets teaching them means that we were late to the party. And the whole purpose of us having this open dialogue is so that we're not late to the party, right?
Yeah.
So that we create an environment that we lead with love, so that our kids are comfortable talking to us. I mean, and kids ain't gonna talk to us about everything, but so that they're at least comfortable having a dialogue about something, so that we can impart wisdom, because we have been where they're going.
Yeah.
And
And then
so
we can never look back and say, yo, I didn't try.
mhm, that's
Like I
it.
think I think the main thing is, like, we try. Like, we might not get it right. Chances
Mhm,
are we won't get it right. My parents could tell me to the wheels fall off, hey, don't you go out there smoking any marijuana. And
mhm.
it's gonna be like, Mom, I'm going outside. What you gonna do? So they're not always gonna listen, or we're
Uh-huh.
not always gonna listen, but you gotta try. You gotta give it that attempt. If you don't give it that attempt, then you're gonna regret it. You're always gonna say, not only was I late to the party, I didn't even attempt to get in, man.
Ooh, I didn't even attempt to get in. And you open the window here, right? So we talk about drugs, because the thing is, and it's interesting. There was a guy, he had a lot of media attention about 6-7 months ago, that I think Dr. Hart, I think it's Carey Hart, but Dr. Carl Hart, the guy who wrote the book, I think it was like drug use for adults or something like that, or drug use for grown-ups, or whatever it is. But he had a lot of criticism because he openly talked about his recreational drug use. And the whole concept of him putting the book out was to not encourage people to use drugs, but he said he wanted to put the use on top of the table to force parents to really have open conversations about what's going on, and it not be an under the table sneaking type deal.
Yeah.
Because if you put stuff on top of the table and you literally meet it head on and address it, then you have the opportunity to lay the facts out and say, look, this is what it really is, right? And one of the things he talked about, or I heard somewhere else, it was saying that fentanyl overdose was the number one killer in America for all people ages 18 to 45. Fentanyl overdoses. Like,
Yeah.
it was when that thing, and so when you start looking at this and you're hearing drugs and all of this, and people, choosing to go this route, but then the facts aren't laid out, you open up to the streets teaching your kids about dope, and they're watching TV, they're watching Power, where everybody seems to be snorting cocaine, or everybody seems to be trying anything, any pill or whatever. And if we don't head it off and have real conversations with them, they might, again, go off to college or start hanging out with their friends in high school and think that, oh, I guess that's what everybody does. Hell no, it ain't.
Yeah, man. And that's a tough one, man, because when I first started doing the Fatherhood is Lit podcast, or even like the live stuff on Instagram, I used to go on there and tell people, yo, I take my son to the hood. Like, I take him to my old stomping grounds, and my old stomping grounds is littered with drug fiends. And I used to blatantly say, yo, my son is out here seeing what crack does to crackheads, right? And people didn't understand that. Like, people would look at me and be like, yo, you're crazy. Like, what are you doing? And it's like, yo, the way I learned about drugs was the same exact way. My dad had me on 152nd and Jackson Avenue in the Bronx, New York, in the South Bronx. And I saw people shooting up, man. Like, I saw them putting heroin in their system, snorting cocaine, everything. And then my father and his friends would show me what happens to people like that. Like, they would show me how people like that would walk the streets and get robbed. They would show me how they would buy the things that they would steal from cars. They would show me their arms. They would show me all the detrimental shit that came with crack. And people would judge my father and say, why are you doing that? Yo, it worked. It worked. I will not touch that shit, man. Like, even when we were talking about the health stuff, man, like, the doctor told me, hey, you know what? You need to take an MRI. I'm going to give you some volume or something like that. My first question was, yo, is that an opioid? Do I have a chance of getting addicted? If that's the case, then I'm good, yo. I'll go smoke a joint and then come through, like go do my MRI. Like we good. Like I'm not putting that in my system. So it scared the crap out of me. I do the same thing with my son, man. Like with my son, that's a party that I don't want to be late to at all.
That's right. That's
at
right.
all, because there's too much money there and there's too much free life, right? Where it's like people that are addicted get to live they think they're living the way that they want to live, and then the people supplying it are living the way that they think they want to live as well. But it all comes to an end. I don't want that. You know what I mean? So I have no issues taking my son to a bad place and showing them what happens. I know a lot of parents ain't gonna do that, and that's perfectly fine. Whatever you think works, cool. But for me, that's what works for my son. And I hope it continues to work. You know what I mean? And he just sees reality.
Dude, that is such a powerful example. And I think, you can have different perspectives, right? You can have, again, I would say that's kind of like shock value. It's like the scared straight. You know what I'm saying? Remember the show Scared Straight? They take little badass kids and take them to jail and basically let them spend a couple days or a couple hours in jail getting, harassed by the current inmates. And the whole concept was, I'm going to scare you to keep you from acting up because that might end up here. And I don't even know. We probably need to look and find something on the studies or the results of Scared Straight programs because I don't know the success of them, right? If there's like any documented data. But to your point, I think that there are some, individuals, and this is why it's so important for us to have relationships with our kids that are very intimate so that we know the wiring between the ears of our kids, because for some of our kids, they need that scared straight. They need to have that in your face. No, I'm going to take your ass all the way to the end so you can see what this thing ends up potentially being. On the flip side, you might have a kid who you don't have to go that extreme. You could just basically have open conversations. And this is the other part. And this is the one that I think we really need to get to. And it connects with the sex conversation, alcohol, and the drugs. It's that kids, you are enough. We have to let our kids know that you are in a position in which you don't, quote unquote, need any external source, substance, person, whatever. You don't need anything external to be the full manifestation of who you have been divinely created to be. And so to that point, I think we have to also do that part of really building them up so that they understand that anything that you take in from the outside, there's nothing that you take in from the outside that doesn't have risk, right? You can drink too much water and it can be deadly. You can spend too much time out in the sun and it can be harmful to you, right? Everything that we do, there's a potential risk. You can eat too much broccoli and it could, be hurtful to you. So even good things, too much of it can be bad. And so I think we need to come back and help kids to understand that anything that they take in from the outside, there is some type of risk involved. So the best case scenario is, you know what? You really don't need none of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but that comes with, like you said earlier, us teaching them about love, right? Like loving themselves.
Yeah.
That ties into the whole sex thing. If I love myself, I don't need to get busy with that person just because my friend told me so. Same thing with the drugs. If I love myself, and I don't want to roam the streets looking like a zombie, like this guy next to me, then I won't do it. You know what I mean? And I think it all comes down to like that peer pressure and loving yourself. Peer pressure is a bitch, man. Like, I think that's the biggest thing. Like, and that's something that, is off topic because we teach that all our lives to them, right? But it's not something that we take out and say, well, we can't let the streets teach them, because the streets is the actual test. Like you said earlier in the beginning of the conversation, the true test is what they're going to put them through. Right? That's it. And if they don't love themselves, then they screwed, man. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that that us as fathers, society, doesn't value like the way that we teach fatherhood or teach our kids to love themselves. You know what I mean? Like, we're a little bit rougher. Like, I'm a little bit rougher with my son. I'm sure you're a little bit rougher with your son and even your daughter. You know what I mean? And society might say, oh, now you need to switch that up a little bit. And it's like, no, I think we know what our kids need. And the main thing that we need to remember is that if we do it from love, then they'll receive that. You know what I mean?
Like, if we do it from love, they will receive it.
Yeah, because the thing is, you could always tell your kid, yo, I don't want you smoking a cigarette. I never want you touching a cigarette, right? What you hope that they do is that when they're, with their friends, they pull out that cigarette and they say, yo, you know what? You're telling me to do this so I could be down with you. But my dad always told me I didn't need to do this to be down with anybody. You know what I mean? And you hope that helps. I don't, it's been such a long time since I was a child, man. but I
Yes.
know that peer pressure is hard, bro. I know it's hard, and I know all the kids are gonna mess up. 9 out of 10 times they might not do the right thing, man. But you hope that one time that they do it, they say, all right, well, I know that I had to do it this way because my dad or my parents exposed me to this and they taught me something. You know what I mean?
Dude, I'm gonna tell you, and it's so, and this is probably a good point to kind of wrap it up for this conversation. But I saw something on Instagram today. One of my homeboys, I'm gonna give a shout out to Jerron Mayman, one of the homies. He put this in his story, and he said, "Nothing that's for me will require me to act out of my character to get it. Absolutely nothing."
Yeah, man.
And I
That's
just,
love. That's self-love, bro.
that's self-love. Nothing that's for me will require me to act out of my character to get it. Absolutely nothing. And so when it comes to us, leading the way and creating an environment in which we can be the teachers to be there before the streets teach our kids something, or at least be so in tune that once we notice something is in there, for us to inquire and basically add our dad wisdom and our dad sauce into the mix. I think if we really prioritize that and we lead with love, we'll do the best job possible. And nothing's perfect, but I think we'll do a job well enough that we can at least give our kids a high probability of living a fulfilling life, impacting the world on the level that they're capable of, and enjoying the process.
Yeah, and we know what it is, man. As people that were kids once before, we know that love isn't. It doesn't always shine through, right? Like
That's
they
right.
could, your parents could shower you with love. We could do the same. We could shower our kids with love. And sometimes it's gonna work, sometimes it's not. But if we don't do that, if we don't show them that there is somebody out there that truly loves them no matter what, then who will? Like the streets can never love them as much as our parents or as we as parents could. You know what I mean? We need to actually show that to them.
Guess what? You just said something, and I just thought about it. If you shower them with love, it may still not work. But if you don't shower them with love, it's guaranteed to not work.
Yeah, they don't know it exists, bro. You know what did the great 50 say, man? Sunny days wouldn't be special if it wasn't for the rain. Right. So it's the same thing, right? It's the same thing, man. Like if the kids don't know that the kids might not accept that love all the time, but if you never do it, how do they know it exists, man? You know what I mean? And that's for all the dads out there. Like, don't you can still be a man and show love, man. Like your corny level, right? Your corny, I'm a loving level dad or whatever. Like that level, the level that the peak of it is whatever you set it to. It's not what Mike says it is. It's not what James says it is. It's not what your wife says it is. If you want to show love your way, man. If it gets a little mushy and your wife looks at you and says, man, you treating our baby like a baby. Yeah, that's right. That's my baby. Yeah.
Ooh. And check this out. I don't think there's anything any more manly than showing love, because it takes a man to show love. It takes a man to, if you need to show emotion, to be able to show emotion. And I dare somebody to say something about it, right? Like, don't ever shy away from that, man. Our kids need our love. This is entitled, we do it for our kids for a reason. And we show love for our kids because I want them to see the example. I want them to feel the example, to feel what it's like. But then I want them to see the example of, my dad showed me love, so this is the expectation that I have as I grow up into a man. Or for my girl, when she grows up and gets married, her expectation of what her husband and all of that become. I mean, that's the whole point. We must show love. And if we don't, man, hey, we're leaving them vulnerable.
That's right. Don't let the streets pick them up.
Come
Don't let the streets pick them up. That's it. We all know what that's about. You know what I mean? Like, it's not worth it. So even if you're late to the party, man, join that party.
That's it.
Join that party and start teaching, man. Start teaching and get busy.
This is a party in which they never turn the lights on. So therefore, you can always step in and get your groove on. Don't be late to the party, but who cares? Just get to the party.
That's right. That's right. Do like New York City, man. We don't sleep.
We don't sleep. It never sleeps.
That's right.
Well, brother, hey man, let's go ahead and wrap this thing up so we can do our thing, and we'll come back with another topic, pretty soon. But hey, y'all be on the lookout. We got some stuff dropping. Be looking for links in the show notes on how you can connect and see what's popping with We Do It For Our Kids. It's collab between Black Fathers Now and Fatherhood is Lit. And any parting words, man, before we jump out of here?
I just want people to remember that you know the streets are the same everywhere. Yes, they have their differences as to like social classes and stuff like that, but the streets to us, it just means your neighborhood, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it does take a village to raise a child,
Mm-hmm.
but some of those lessons that come from the village, nah, man, we don't want those.
Mm-hmm.
We want to switch that up a little bit. So
Absolutely.
don't sleep, man. If you could think about it, chances are your kids already know about it. So make it work.
Mic drop. If you can think about it, chances are your kids already know about it. Well,
right.
y'all, this is Coach Mike D with Black Fathers Now.
Let's get it. And I'm James Lopez from Fatherhood is Lit. Let's get it. Represent. Make your presence felt.
All right, fellas. Y'all be easy. All right. Peace.
Yeah.